Imagine your father asking you to help him install a cellar door only to be locked inside by him for the next 24 years of your life. Elizabeth Fritzl was freshly 18 and ready to leave the nest when one day in 1984, her father, Joseph Fritzl, asked her to help him install the door in the basement of their home in Austria. Unaware of his horrific intentions, Elizabeth obliged. As they finished and she was heading out, he suddenly covered her face in a cloth soaked in ether. For the next 24 years, Elizabeth had to endure a suffering that no one could fathom. Joseph convinced his wife, other children, and their neighbors that Elizabeth ran away and joined some religious cult. They believed it because she had previously run away and stayed with a friend for 20 days when she was 15 to get away from her father's abuse, which started when she was 11. Police found her after those 20 days and brought her back home. If it wasn't terrible enough being forced to endure the blazing summers and catching rats with her bare hands, she was also repeatedly abused by her own father over the years of captivity. Initially, he tied her up with an iron chain so that she could barely move, but it caused trouble during the horrendous activities he put her through, and he removed it months later. For the first 5 years in the basement, she was all alone. He assaulted her at least 3,000 times in those 24 years, which resulted in her birthing 7 children. She gave birth to all her children with no medical help for almost 12 years. Joseph provided her with just a disinfectant, a dirty pair of scissors, and a book on childbirth. One of her children died prematurely due to difficulty breathing just 3 days after his birth in 1996. When the baby started to come, Elizabeth tried to end it all, but looking at her kids, she had purpose to live after the initial years of being alone. Joseph held control over her by threatening to end the lives of her and her children if they ever tried to escape. He would also turn off the lights in the basement for days on end so that she'd be in complete darkness. 3 of her children were in the basement with her, while the other 3 mysteriously appeared on the doorstep of Joseph and Rosemary, Elizabeth's mother, as per his planning. He doctored letters to Rosemary from Elizabeth saying that she was well but couldn't take care of the children. One day, Elizabeth's oldest daughter, Kirsten, who was 19 at the time, became extremely ill and needed immediate hospitalization. This is when Elizabeth pleaded with her father to get Kirsten medical attention. Joseph Fritzl, who had never shown mercy in those 24 years, surprisingly took Kirsten to the hospital. This is when things took a turn. Crime Fanatic Friday, Part 2, the girl enslaved in the basement for 24 years by her own father. When Elizabeth's daughter, Kirsten, arrived at the hospital, the doctors who were attending her became deeply suspicious by her condition. They later alerted police officials who put an appeal in the media and broadcasted repeatedly for Kirsten's mother to come forward with necessary information if they want to save her life. Little did they know, Elizabeth Fritzl, Kirsten's mother, was locked in the basement she had lived in for 24 years, watching the broadcast over and over with her 2 other children. This is when Elizabeth begged her father, Joseph Fritzl, to let her go. He was growing old and saw his powers waning, finding it difficult to maintain both families. He hatched a plan on how to get rid of all of this without too many questions being asked and told some stories to the hospital staff when he took Elizabeth to see Kirsten. However, they didn't believe his stories and police questioned Elizabeth in a separate room of the hospital. She recounted the last 24 years being held prisoner by her father, assaulted, beaten, and birthing 7 children by him. In 2009, Joseph Fritzl was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. He suffers from dementia now and was said to be ill in 2019. Elizabeth and her 3 children who were raised by her parents were reunited. They were all given support from a local psychiatric center to help with their deep traumas. She eventually moved to a fortress in a remote Austrian village with her children and changed her name. It has steel fencing, video cameras, CCTV, operated gates, and trees shielding the windows. Her children are now all adults that range in age from 20 to 35. Initially, Elizabeth wanted nothing to do with her mother, Rosemary, thinking that she was part of Joseph's plan and that there was no way she didn't know the truth. But years later, they became friends and see each other often. In 2019, it was reported that Elizabeth found love with her bodyguard. Apparently, everyone from the beginning could see how secure she felt with him. The past couple of months, my wife's been complaining about her cats. She's been claiming that the cats wake her up constantly and she's frustrated every night and that she has to get up and open the door for the cats. Or the cats keep making noises, or the cats keep jumping on her. It got to the point where she started saying that she wants me to get rid of them. I told her that I've never seen or heard any of this, but she claims that I sleep through it all. She kept telling me that she was getting less and less sleep and kept acting aggressive, blaming lack of sleep from the cats and that if I didn't get rid of them, then she'd leave me. I legitimately started considering giving my cats away to my sister until I noticed something. One morning, she claimed that she had gotten up multiple times throughout the night to help the cats. She listed a bunch of times. I thought it was weird because I had been up until 4 in the morning and she claimed that she got up at 1 in the morning to open the door for them and a few times around 3 in the morning because they were meowing and jumping on her. I was in the bedroom the entire time while she slept and I know none of that happened. Things weren't adding up, so I decided to run a test. I waited until she was going to bed and then I let the cats out of the bedroom, lowered my phone's brightness, and faked going to sleep. I just laid there in bed the entire night, bored, but I definitely did not fall asleep. I made sure to make the timestamps every 30 minutes on my phone through Discord just to be sure. I marked down every noise that my cats made. One cat had jumped down from something and made a little sound at 3 in the morning, and one ate food relatively quietly by the bedroom door around 5 in the morning. Other than that, nothing happened. Sure enough, my wife slept from 11 p.m. until 9 in the morning, and then that morning she claimed that she had woken up at least 7 times to open the doors for the cats' noises and cats jumping on her. At this point, I was pissed because she was clearly lying to me. I was exhausted and fed up with the lie, so I bluntly called her out on it. I told her, "That's funny, I stayed up all night to monitor the cats and they weren't even in the room last night. I have timestamps and everything. So you've been lying to me and trying to convince me to get rid of my cats? Why? She just sat there quietly shaking and looking pissed, then got up and left without answering. She came back hours later and ignored me whenever I talked, and when I asked how I'm the bad guy in this situation, she finally said that I was treating her like a child by lying about sleeping and staying up all night just to see if she was lying or not, and that making timestamps and everything as if I was an investigator was going too far. It makes me an obsessive asshole. I only did it because she was threatening to make me get rid of my cats or she'd leave me, and her claims didn't add up. Am I the asshole for fake sleeping all night to see if my wife is lying? Part 2. I faked being asleep all night to see if my wife was lying. My wife has been Baker acted. She didn't hurt herself, just said something concerning in public. I got a call from the hospital this morning asking me to head over for some family therapy. Apparently, she finally wanted to talk. I'll be honest, I'm pretty pissed at the reason why she's been so hateful towards my cats. It's absolutely asinine. It's nothing that anyone had suggested. She's not cheating. She's not sick physically or mentally. She's not bored of the relationship and looking for an out. According to her, one of the cats stepped on her laptop and ruined a story that she was writing. She's hated both cats ever since. I mean, that sucks, but it's not worth trying to emotionally blackmail me into getting rid of them. I asked her why she didn't just tell me the truth and why she'd been lying and refused to talk about it when I asked. Her answer was, because you wouldn't have gotten rid of them otherwise, and explained that when she saw I wasn't willing to abandon them for her, she took offense and made it a goal to have me pick her over them. Sickening. Don't know why she actually admitted to it all. The woman with us asked me how I felt about it all, and I just told the truth. I told her it was a nice run, but I'm probably going to want a divorce. I was asked why, and I told them. I've seen a new hateful, malicious side of her that I want nothing to do with. She was so set on getting rid of the cats over a fan fiction being ruined that she manipulated her husband. My wife started shouting at me that I've betrayed her and that I'm scum for choosing animals over her. At least cats don't give ultimatums like she gave. It sucks that she's been Baker acted and all, I guess, but it's for the best right now. She'll have time to process it all in a safe environment and hopefully come to terms with it. Bad husband, I know. I'm almost sure that I'm going for a divorce. I'm very worried about having her in the same house with my cats. I want my cats safe. I don't want to worry about them being harmed or disappearing. Screw that. I was adopted at 3 months old. I had a dysfunctional family growing up, but I was cared for and loved. Both my adoptive parents passed away in separate car accidents, my dad when I was 17 and my mom 3 years ago when I was 24. I had a semi-open adoption, but my parents requested my adoptive parents to stop sending them photos and updates about me when I was less than a year old. I had a vague idea of who my parents were. I grew up knowing their names and I had several photos of them. I did a DNA test and was matched with 3 full siblings, which shocked me. I was always told my parents were young, barely knew each other, and wanted to further their education. About 3 months ago, I decided to Google their names and found them on social media. It turns out they're married to each other now with 7 more children they had together. I stalked them on Facebook for a bit and it seems like they have a relatively happy life. I was shocked to find out that I have 7 full siblings and that my sister, who is closest in age to me, is actually only 11 months younger. I was even more shocked to find out that I have an older, full brother who was not adopted out, who is only a year and a few months older than me. I ended up reaching out to my birth mother via Facebook, telling her that I would love to get to know her and that I've had a great life and I have no expectations. She took a month to respond, and when she did, she was surprised that I reached out and to please not contact any of my siblings as they weren't aware of my existence. I didn't respond for a few days, but I ended up just asking her why she chose to give me up and why she never told anyone about me. She responded and said that I was a NICU baby. She and my birth father were 17 when I was born and they weren't prepared to raise a disabled child. She said at the time they were under the impression that I would never live independently and they weren't in a place to have a special needs child. I was again shocked. I definitely always was in the lower priced house for growth until puberty, but according to my grandmother, by the time I was 8 months old, I was hitting all the markers for regular mental development. I have an MS in mathematics from a tier 1 university. I was an athlete in high school and I never had any issues in school beyond being really horrible in art class. I'm married with a child. I'm a fully functioning adult with a great career and a family of my own, and it hurts to know that I was given up because of the slight chance that I wouldn't turn out to be perfect. Part of me feels like I miss out on life with siblings. I was raised as an only child, and that I could still have a chance to know them and love them, and that my daughter would have a chance to have cousins. My youngest siblings aren't even in elementary school yet, and I could have a normal sibling bond with them or at least be part of their lives from a young age, and I wish that I had that chance. I'm not angry at my birth parents for giving me away. I don't hate them. I'm hurt, but I'm not angry. I am angry that they've requested I not reach out to my adult siblings, and I'm considering doing it anyway. Should I ignore my birth parents' wishes and reach out to them anyway? I'm 26 and my husband is 31. I was planning on having a girls' night in at home and he initially was like, no, not here, get a hotel or something. I said I couldn't afford a hotel, plus there was no need for one. He asked if he could join us if he's going to allow it, but I said no, this isn't how girls' night works. He eventually agreed to let me have it and even said he'd go out so my friends could be more comfortable. I invited the girls over and most of them had a lot of heavy venting to do. At some point things got a bit emotionally charged and there was crying, lots of it. After we brought in the food and drinks, when I went to turn on the TV, I spotted a small device tucked on the side. I took a look and found that it was actually a voice recording device. I was in disbelief. I knew my husband put it there to listen to our private conversations, which felt highly violating. I didn't hide it from the girls. I showed them the device, called my husband to get him to come home, and confronted him right there in front of the girls. The girls were shocked and my husband denied it after I flipped out and called him out. Then he said he was feeling curious to know about what we were talking about and wanted to make sure we weren't trash talking him specifically. The event was cut short and the girls left. I kept lashing out at him for ruining the night and possibly my relationship and trust with my friends. I said not only did he violate my privacy, but my friends as well, because they were talking about very personal stuff. He argued that it was no big deal, that I should have just let him join us if we had nothing to hide, and that this was on them for opening up about private matters to begin with. He went on to talk about how I humiliated him by calling him out in front of my friends. I told him they deserve to know who he really is after what he's done. We argued some more and then he went out again. We're still fighting till today, and I feel like I made a mistake calling him out like that aside from how I felt about it. He claims that my friends will no longer respect him after that. Am I the asshole for calling my husband out in front of my friends for planning a recording device while we were having a girls' night in? I'm 30, my boyfriend 31, have been dating for 6 months. We met through a mutual friend and things went from there. We do not live together. We do, however, spend enough time but more outside. A week ago, while we were out with friends, my boyfriend asked if I could make a copy of the key to my apartment. For a little bit of context, I own an apartment while he rents with his friends, and let him have it. I was puzzled and asked why. He said he might need to stop by alone or with some friends when I'm at work or somewhere. To be honest, I just did not feel like it was a good idea. I asked what business does he have in my apartment when I'm out, and he took offense to that. A few seconds of awkward silence later, then I told him that I don't feel comfortable having anyone at my apartment unless I'm there, and that he gets to have a copy of the key only if he lives there, and that's it. He got quiet for the rest of the evening, but after we left, he sent a long wall of text basically criticizing what I had said to him and talking about how I don't trust him. I said that I just didn't think he should have a copy unless he's living with me, and he took it as in I was pushing him to move in. But as far as I know, he lives with a bunch of guys paying rent, so not the best living arrangement, and he constantly complains. We had an argument and he insisted that I have no trust in him, that I embarrassed him in front of his friends by declining to let him have a copy of the key. He then hung up and kept sulking. I tried calling him again, but one of his friends picked up and got involved, saying my boyfriend is rightfully upset with me for not treating him like my partner and showing him the respect that he deserves. He said me refusing to give him a copy of the key means 1, I don't trust him or his friends, and 2, I think he's a thief and can't be trusted with my belongings. It got overwhelming, and I started to think that I flew off the handle and was unfair to him by flat out refusing and then not explaining my point. Am I the asshole for not letting my boyfriend have a copy of the key to my apartment? So my daughter, 16, has had a best friend named Mare since she was 9 years old. They were so close that Mare had a key to our house and everything. Sometimes she would come over when my daughter wasn't even around because that's how close she was to the rest of our family. She even went with us to family reunions. Well, recently, Mare got a boyfriend. She would bring him around our house sometimes, and I could tell that my daughter had a crush on him. But I assumed it was a small innocent crush and nothing would come of it. Well, one day, Mare pulled into our driveway like a crazy woman and accidentally hit our garage. When I came out, she had boxes of stuff and was shaking so bad that she could barely walk. When I looked inside the boxes, they were all my daughter's stuff from over the years. I'm talking about toys that she still had from when they were 9. I didn't know what happened, but I could tell that she was distraught, so I helped her get all the boxes out of the car and pulled her inside for a cup of tea. After about 15 minutes, she said, "Did you know?" Turns out that my daughter had slept with her boyfriend multiple times and that she found out by a voicemail my daughter left on her boyfriend's phone, and Mare saw and listened to it. When I confronted my daughter, she had no defense. I asked her what was next, and she said that she was going to get with him because if she didn't, they ruined 2 relationships for nothing. I was and still am appalled, and that was 5 months ago. Soon my family and I are going on a family vacation and all my other children's partners are invited. However, I told my daughter that hers wasn't. She blew up at me and then cried, asking when I'm ever going to forgive her. I told her it would have been one thing if she had slept with her boyfriend once. It still would have been terrible, but at least she could have learned from her mistake and grown. Instead, she slept with him multiple times, and the fact that she's still dating him proves that she isn't sorry for what she did. My husband says that this treatment of her relationship is only going to cause strain on our own, but I just can't believe how selfish and cruel she's become. I've spent thousands of dollars on this trip. I think I have the right not to invite people I don't want there. And I'm sorry if 5 months of her new boyfriend isn't going to erase the 7 years of friendship with Mare. I still talk to Mare sometimes, and she's doing a lot better now, but when it first happened, her mental health was ruined. And even as she's doing better and going to therapy, the mental effects of this level of betrayal is probably going to last years to fully get over. She says she's still hurt by what happened. Every time I look at my daughter, I'm honestly disgusted. This is not the type of person I raised her to be, and she's not sorry for any of it. I refuse to walk around on eggshells around my daughter and her boyfriend for a vacation I'm paying for and chaperoning for. Just seeing them together makes me sick. Am I disgusted? I meant her decision making, not her as a whole, because despite everything, she's still my child. Also, I've learned to be cordial around the boyfriend when she's talking about him, but anything beyond that I've been struggling with. Am I the asshole for not accepting my child's relationship?